Welcome to another Ward's Auto Editorial Roundtable. We're talking about the Ward's 10 best engines for 2018. You may have seen the first video clip where we talked about the winners, and now we talk about the rest of the field. We had 32 entries, so a lot of other vehicles that were in the hunt, some very close, but didn't make it. We have some of the editors here from Ward's Auto, the judges who picked the winners, and I'm going to introduce them, and we're going to start our discussion. Christy Swinesberg, to my left, Steve Finley, James Amond, Bob Gritzinger. So, we had a very interesting development this year. No Germans on the list. Of course, it is kind of blasphemy. I mean, BMW has more Ward's 10 Best Engines trophies than any brand, 33 of them. So to not have them on the list, I'm feeling a little verklempt here. But they had a couple of good entries. At the beginning of our discussion, let's talk about the German entries that did not make the list. So we had two from BMW that didn't make it. One was the X3 with the 3-liter B58 inline-6 turbo. Great engine, made our list last year. And then the other was the 530E, so the 5 Series plug-in hybrid with a 2-liter 4-cylinder gas engine. Last year we tested that in the 3 Series, and now it comes along in the 5 Series with some significant changes to the powertrain, a little bit longer range. I really like both of them, but we didn't have the votes, as we say.
Yeah, to me, the 530E, I wrote it was slow off the line from a stop, and then in mid-range, I also thought the torque was lacking, and it just didn't have a lot of character to me either. Yeah. It was very, very quiet, very sedate.
Which I think a hybrid should be. I was more disappointed with the X3. I have to say, I love that engine, but you put it in a bigger vehicle like an X3, more weight, and I was missing something. It wasn't like driving the 2 Series that had won a year earlier. It didn't have the same exhaust sound. It was missing something.
The application is very important.
It is.
And we all know where the market is going, right? And the market is right here at the X3. But still, that engine and that vehicle just kind of left me wanting a smaller vehicle, something with 4 doors, or maybe a small hatch, something more car-based.
It's great that vehicles like this are available with good engines like this.
And I'm sure BMW will sell quite a bit of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Audi had a couple of good entries this year. The 2.5-liter 5-cylinder, a turbo engine in the RS3 that makes 400 horsepower. And boy, that was all sorts of fun. And made great sounds as well. Bob, what was your impression?
But, I think adding the extra cylinder cost them on the fuel economy measure, and so that's part of what took away from it. I too loved it, but at
you
some
got 400
point,
horsepower in the deal, so
you're right.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I was okay with that. At some point, though, you have to start judging based on some of the other numbers, and that one seems to hurt it.
Yeah.
For me, the vibration was an issue. I wrote vibration at idle, even in comfort mode. So it just wasn't as refined, I think, as some of the other twin turbo or the other turbo V6s we.
That's probably one of the issues with having a 5-cylinder. The perfect balance of a 6-cylinder. There's a reason why BMW does them so well.
I would say, just in general, with all the vehicles we drove and their engines, I don't think there was a bad one in the bunch. I mean, they were all good engines. The top 10 were the great engines. So. It's not like one or two or several stood out as, my God, this is horrible, because they all had quality.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The other Audi engine that did not make the cut was the S4. This is a 3-liter turbocharged V6. Now, if you recall, we've had on our list in the past a supercharged V6 from Audi, but now they've gone with turbo. And I had some issues with the NVH in this particular vehicle. I noticed kind of some interrupted stop-start cycles. It wasn't real smooth, and then some vibration as well. Any other
I wrote turbo lag from stop and dynamic mode, a little laggy in mid-range acceleration, average MPG, not
Yeah.
great, not terrible. You know, it
Kind of
just
miss that supercharger.
Well, I don't know. I drove a lot of really impressive turbocharged vehicles in this competition that made me feel like, you know, this is doing the job of a supercharger. We don't have turbo lag any longer. They're so responsive, the way they're. So I just.
Perhaps I'm just really enamored with that previous engine, so that when I came into the new one, my heart's in the old 3-liter.
Well, the reason I mention that, you know, we also tested a supercharged 3-liter V6 that, to me, was very disappointing in that it wasn't a supercharged engine like supercharged engines used to be. You know, you used to get that immediate gratification when you stepped on it. Now you get that response with a turbocharger, and yet with this supercharged Jag, I was feeling like they've kind of switched roles.
I'm curious if they went a little more on the refinement route with that. Still a very enjoyable engine,
It's a sports sedan.
but I agree with you. You know,
Yeah. Other German entries, we had the Volkswagen Passat 2-liter Budak cycle 4-cylinder, interesting combustion cycle that one of the engineers at Volkswagen developed, and great for fuel economy. We noticed some issues with NVH with the Volkswagen. We had it in the Passat. It's also available in the Tiguan. Good engine for fuel economy. I mean, this is a good play that is going to help their CAFE numbers without the expense of a hybrid. But
turn on the radio or turn on the stereo or something, because otherwise the low RPM drone is going to drive you out of your mind. Just 45 miles an hour, 1,200, 1,400 RPM, just steady there, you know.
Right.
So, and that killed it for me.
yeah, we had another Volkswagen that didn't make the list, and that was the e-Golf battery electric vehicle.
which we all loved, but I think we decided it was more about the suspension than it was. I mean, the engine, the
weight.
propulsion system was good too,
Yeah.
but it was
so.
such a fun to drive vehicle.
Much shorter range,
smaller battery.
right?
You're going to get a little bit more
fun.
agility out of it than you might with the Bolt, but
We know that Volkswagen has a lot of product in the pipeline
Right.
in this vein, and
This is a good start.
this is a good start, but I'm pretty sure the engineering in Wolfsburg, they probably feel like, okay, that one, that's old stuff. Let's look forward to what's coming in the future.
Wait till you see our Bolt
Yeah.
and our Model 3.
Yeah.
Well, this one came pretty close to making the top
It
10.
did.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
very close.
Yeah. We
It was
argued
very
it.
close.
Yeah.
We didn't mention Mercedes-Benz. That's because there was no Mercedes engine in this competition, which is odd because last year we had the M274, which is the 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo gas engine that made our list. And so any engine that made the list last year is going to be in the competition this year. Well, that engine is being phased out as a new engine is coming in, which we couldn't get for this year's competition, so it'll be next year. But it's not often that we have a return winner that. So basically, it opens the door to another, another entry. Which this year we had, of course, 10 winners. 8 of them are all new. Usually we have more than 2 carryover winners. So.
Okay, returning winners.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the electrified entries. We already talked about the e-Golf, but boy, we had a lot of others that were also in the hunt. The Chevy Volt was very interesting. I really liked that powertrain a lot. Made the list last year, and up against the Bolt, it doesn't have the same excitement, I guess.
Yeah, I think maybe the bloom is off the rose a little bit, but it still remains one of the more compelling propulsion systems on the market. There's no question that we really enjoy it, and
well priced, and if you have to do a lot of long distance driving, you're going to want the Volt instead of the Bolt, I think.
But the Bolt is the compelling powertrain at this point. This is fantastic and continues to be, and seems to me one of those powertrains that's very close to to the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that didn't make the list was the Volvo XC60 hybrid. This is they call it the T8, and it's a 2-liter turbo and supercharged engine.
Right.
Detuned from the Polestar that made the list last year, really high output. But as a plug-in hybrid, I think we were, if you plugged in and the battery was topped off, you're getting what, like 16 miles or so of range?
Yeah.
Which, okay, 16 miles is, you can burn through that really quickly. So,
well, you're still getting a benefit there, but and I really, really wanted to like this engine a lot. I mean, it's really technically advanced, but the NVH on it, I think we're all in agreement, was just not where it needs to be.
It sounded like a blender. I mean, it just,
which is not good.
That whirring sound, and it didn't. It left me feeling.
Yeah, I had high hopes for it because it was. This powertrain was introduced in the larger XC90, which was out of our price class. And when they came with this, I was hoping that it would fit under the price cap. It did, and just was not as compelling as.
And Volvo's been hitting it out of the park lately.
Volvo had 3 years in a row of engines on our list, all part of this new Drive E 4-cylinder engine architecture that is really, really good. So hopefully we'll get a new version of their hybrid for us to evaluate in the future.
Polestar version. That'd be great.
James, talk about the Buick LaCrosse 2.5-liter e-assist mild hybrid. I noticed some pretty impressive fuel economy numbers. I enjoyed driving it. Do you think there's much of a market out there for this package? Because you could just buy a Volt or a Bolt if you were really serious about it.
Yeah, yes, I think there's a market. It's not me. There are some things, you sacrifice a little bit of trunk space on that a little bit. I did like the original version of it. It has the original version from 4 or 5 years ago really did a lot for GM as far as stop start, and you'll see that GM's vehicles, their stop start is some of the best on the market. But in this vehicle, in this LaCrosse, it just begs for that. It begs for that 3.6 liter V6 that GM has. It's a much better fit.
It's a pretty big vehicle. Yeah. The Hyundai Ioniq plug-in hybrid also, 1.6 liter. Decent range. I didn't think the NVH was particularly great.
I wasn't able to get into it, sorry.
Notice some vibration there. There's the Ioniq, and then there's the Kia Niro, right?
Niro.
The same, basically the same architecture across both brands. They have the plug-in version. They've got the standard hybrid, and then just a standard gas version. Interesting offerings to lots of different segments of the market of buyers. Let's move on to others that didn't make the list.
Well, can I interject on one that we grappled with is the Honda Accord 2-liter turbo 4. Honda is no longer offering in the Accord a V6. So this is the engine, and I was out on that program, and this is the 10th generation Accord, and it's just a great car. I mean, it's progressively become a masterpiece. So I think there were some issues. Some people wanted the Accord on the list, and other people said, well, they're not so sure. But
I wasn't the only one who came into the office and said, that's a 4-cylinder. I mean, as I was driving the vehicle, I was digging through the paperwork to determine that it wasn't a V6.
Yeah.
Really strong and super refined. I thought it was definitely a contender, and only beaten out by its own brethren, the high output, high revving race engine version in the Civic Type R.
Right. So this is something that we run into every year. We have these awkward situations where an engine family gives us basically 2 engines. You want to recognize it as one, but you can't say that the Civic Type R engine is exactly the same as the Honda Accord engine, even though they share a fair amount of hardware. So yes, the engine is very similar to the turbocharged version in the Type R, but you notice the difference in the exhaust sound and the tuning, the mapping, everything is just tuned for high response in the Type R. And but I'll say it, if the Type R didn't make the list, the Honda Accord was going to make the list.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of those versions was going to be on the list.
There's only 10 dates to take to the dance.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know.
that's right. That's
Exactly right.
Really?
Yeah.
I had
But
trouble
not
enough getting one.
Not surprising that Honda had, really tough competitors, really tough nominees. I mean, this is a company that prides itself on its engine, its powertrain engineering,
Yeah.
and it shows.
Yeah. Anybody else want to cry in your beer about other engines that didn't make the list? The Subaru
yeah,
Impreza. I thought the Impreza. I really like that as a base engine, a very affordable vehicle. $23,000 gets you a really nice vehicle, great engine.
Great value. Great value.
Little rough. It's still a little rough.
It's so much smoother than Subaru engines.
Well, yeah, but the bar is low there. That's like, now you want to talk about something that really raises the bar is the Chevrolet 1.5 turbo in that Equinox.
Not for me.
I mean, I felt, well,
You're alone on that
and
side.
again, I'm
Side of the
making
table.
a comparison like Tom. I think of previous General Motors four-cylinders were tractor engines. I mean, they were not far removed from your riding lawnmower. and this engine seems very quiet, surprisingly powerful for such a little piece. And Christy doesn't
I did
agree,
not
but
think it was. I thought it was a diesel at first. This was the first engine I drove in the competition this year, and for like the first 3 hours, I thought I was driving the Equinox.
we did
diesel,
have a
'cause we did
diesel.
have the diesel, right? I
No,
mean,
the
there
injectors-
was
the
there was
injectors
a
are
lot
loud.
of clatter.
The injectors are loud.
I had I had no issues with the performance. Power
Yeah.
and torque was great, but the NVH killed it for me.
yeah, but
The diesel was in the competition also. We had the diesel last year in the Cruise, correct?
right.
And now they've made some changes, improved on the NVH. So the diesel this year in the Equinox was better than the diesel we had last year, but it didn't make the cut.
No, and I think a big key thing on that is the integration of stop-start into that diesel. Now, well, depending on the conditions, typically you're not going to be sitting at a stoplight or an intersection with that diesel engine
Right.
rattling in front of you. So that was the big thing for it, but it's just not quite good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also not making the list was the Mazda CX-9 2.5 liter Turbo 4 that made our list last year. Another one, like Bob mentioned, the 1.5 liter turbo in the Equinox, Honda has a very closely aligned 1.5 liter four-cylinder turbo in the CR-V that one really impressed me as well. So it's great to see these mainstream high-volume vehicles getting good engines, and you can take that 1.5 liter on a long road trip, and you're going to get great fuel economy.
Yeah,
interesting.
as the competition sort of ramps up, I think what surprises me is how many really great new powertrains we're seeing.
Yeah.
That change your perspective. Something like the CX-9 2.5
Yep.
seemed fantastic last year, but against the field this year, it drops down.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Elantra Eco 1.4, another
Winner last year. yeah.
really strong piece, but again, against the competition, boy, it's getting harder and harder to stay on the list
Yeah.
year after
It
year.
is.
No, that's a good point, because engine programs are cycling much more quickly than they did in the past. Sometimes an engine would stay on the market for several years before it was changed. And
Small
now,
block Chevy.
now we're seeing engines
we
that
into,
made our
60
list last year that are being upgraded and being improved. And so it's I'm sure it's taxing for the engineers, but it's good to see. All right, let's wrap up. Just a couple of wrap-up items here. Our price cap, Bob mentioned, was $63,000. So if your car was priced under $63,000 base, then it was going to be
No
eligible.
Bugattis.
Yeah, just to give you kind of the quick rundown, we had one V8 in the competition. We had 8 6-cylinder engines. This is the total field. 6 of them were turbo, 1 of them was supercharged. We had 18 4-cylinder engines, and 12 of them were turbocharged. And of the 32 engines that we evaluated, 20 of them were turbocharged. That's a whole lot of turbocharged entries. So anyway, it was great talking with you all, and we look forward to revisiting the 10 best engines of 2019 when we talk again next year.
Let's do it again next year.
Thanks for tuning in.